If I knew of a science higher than Tasawuf, I will be on my hands and knees. It's the most important knowledge that you can give to yourself. It's the heart of knowledge, is the door to knowledge of Allah. That can only happen with the heart. So this is an immense affair, critical in every conceivable way. And yet, it is only known to his own people. What does it mean? It means that you need to taste tasawwuf. And tasting, idea of tasting is you have to experience it yourself. You can look at some plate full of strawberries and you can smell it and you can imagine what it will be like, but you never know how it tastes until you actually put it in your mouth. And that means an act of expressing through action the thing that you want to know. Once you understand it and once you taste it, then an unfolding of matters happen. You start to realize the importance. Once you realize the importance of it, nothing will stop you. So it is critical from this perspective to make that first step. And I will call this the most important of all steps, since the tariqah is an endless affair. Knowledge of Allah is an endless affair. You never stop. The most important of all these steps that form the path is precisely that first one. That first one that serves the purpose of activating the heart. And it is my intention that throughout this series of talks, we put into practice the things that we are discussing. And my interest in this will be that you start tasting the matters of Tasawwuf. The value of this will be that it will trigger further interest in going deeper and deeper and deeper. And certain conditions in order to achieve that first step will be conditions of what we call suluk. By undertaking certain actions, you will be able to kind of unfold that mystery that is the heart. And the perfect conditions to bring this matter forward have always been halwa. Halwa means retreat. And so it is important to understand that this is as old as Islam itself. The people retrieving into a cave, into the forest, into the desert, in order to find themselves in isolation from the daily affairs of society, to cut off from mobile phones, meetings, like taking a mini holiday, to liberate yourself from the engagements of this world, however great they may be, in order to give yourself the time to dedicate yourself to knowledge of Allah, which comes through loving Allah and fearing Allah. The ideal form of halwa is to extend it to the 40 days. The 40 is just a number that is like means like an immensity. I have been myself in 40 days and I couldn't stop in 40 days. It's like a kind of, you get hooked by it, but you have to put a limit to it. So it's like a kind of, you have to stop at some point. The case of most people is that they want to stay a little bit more, but they have to plan because they are engaged with affairs. They have meetings and they have things and the other. So you have to allocate a specific time, but everybody benefits. Everybody benefits. The minimum amount of time that I have found that it makes sense is 3 days. And the reason is that the first day is so good, but most of the benefits come at the very end of the first 24 hours. And therefore, you don't want to stop it there. You want to continue with the second day. And the second day has the most benefits at the end of the 48 hours. And therefore, you don't want to end up there. And the third day, equally. The third day is by far the best, always, without exception. So it's a pity to leave it there. at least 3 days, because in 3 days, most people achieve what I call the first step, activating the heart. Creating these perfect conditions may not always be possible unless you yourself are capable of finding these situations. But I will teach you throughout this series several tricks that you can use in order to create not conditions of halwa, but almost similar conditions to halwa, in which you can give yourself the time and the best appropriate conditions in order to reach your heart and activate your heart. Once the first step comes in, the second follows, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the time will come where you no longer need any conditions at all, because in every circumstance you will be at ease to activate the heart, because the heart is already active, and your process will be more like trying to cover it up in order to be able to relate to other people, to bring your makam to the level of you can communicate with other people. This will be a very different type of exercise, the different circumstances that will come later. But our concentration will be on that first step so that you become comfortable with knowing, realizing that your heart is at work. And the heart is not just moving you from one side to the other, but the heart is managed. You are going to achieve that management of the heart, which means that you can increase and decrease your makam, your conditioning. Out of these different makams and different stations that you arrive to, you will be able to see the world differently. Every makam is like a complete unveiling of the matters in front of you in different degrees. So when you arrive to a first makam, you will find yourself like in a different planet. Either how can it be that how I didn't realize before? How could I live in the way I was living earlier? And such condition, when it comes to you, it expresses itself like you want to do shahada again. It's like kind of forgive me, Allah, for not being able to understand myself and yourself, for not being able to worship you correctly. And that signifies a change so profound in you that you want to continue transforming yourself in different, from Makam 1 to Makam 2 to Makam 3, because even though you have arrived to a Makam that is so extraordinary, this will be all overwhelmed again with the next Makam and the next with the next, etc., etc. It's always a complete unfolding of yourself, like a liberating aspects of yourself that allows you to encounter the world in a complete different fashion, completely different. Nothing has changed. Your limbs are still the same. You don't have magical powers. You're not so flying in the air. You're still the same human being, but the way you encounter the world has changed so dramatically that it appears to be entirely different. Well, this will be important because it's going to help you through your daily affairs. And this is every aspect of life, from your encounter with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your ibadah, and the relationships you have with your dear ones, with your neighbors, with your partners, with everybody in general, at the scale of families, communities, and even the whole world, the whole Muslim world, and the whole world as a whole. Is to be able to encounter, to look at that as a task that no longer is distant from you, but is close to you. The mysteries that come associated with this affair are numerous and immense, and they have been expressed in many, many ways. And don't be surprised if throughout the process of this, everything appears to be like overwhelming, extraordinary, and there are bits of the matter that they sound like impossible. Because this is how I myself was introduced into this affair. And I remember when I came into the presence of my teacher at the very beginning, and I knew nothing. I knew nothing about Tasawuf, and I knew nothing about Islam. And how he conducted this affair so carefully, giving me something that I could taste myself at a lower scale, but also with indications of things to come that I could not understand. I always remember him saying to me, everything that you need is within the reach of your hand. Everything that you need is within the reach of your hand.